Hello and welcome back to another deep dive into Expeditions, a MudRunner game. Now, if you are unaware, I was recently able to play a preview build of the game, which was early, so some things may change between now and the release date. However, if you haven't seen the first part of my deep dive into Expeditions, make sure you watch the first one, well, first? Because there are some things that I talk about in this video that require the context of the previous Expeditions video in order to fully make sense, or rather to fully, work together. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right into my further thoughts. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the interesting community response to this gameplay, especially the community response to the first video that I posted from this Expeditions preview build. Now, there were more than a few comments saying that, oh, this doesn't look different enough from SnowRunner. And here's the thing, and you'll have to take my word for this. This game is definitely evolutionary rather than revolutionary, if that makes sense. However, this series in general has always been more of an evolutionary series rather than a revolutionary one. And I mean that in the sense that they have a system that obviously their player base really enjoys, and also that their player base just honestly likes to engage with. And so they obviously don't want to throw out their core gameplay dynamics and replace them with something entirely different that maybe, doesn't work for everybody. So that's kind of where I want to address that whole concern of this maybe, I don't know, just somehow for some people not being quote unquote different enough from SnowRunner. But I also find the concern of it not being different enough to be a bit of an odd concern, because if this game was super different from SnowRunner to begin with, to be brutally honest, it is, having played it, having played a preview build, I can definitely say without a shadow of a doubt that it is definitely a different experience from SnowRunner. Obviously you can tell that it's from the same universe, but it certainly does not play like or feel like the exact same game. But that is something that's only going to come with the experience of actually playing the game. So you're going to have to take my word for the fact that it does feel different. Now, again, it doesn't feel radically different, but it does feel like things that you know well and dynamics that you know and love from SnowRunner have been tweaked and modified from the way you experienced them before. Now with this 8x8, for example, we've seen that the tire pressure has been lowered, and that's going to give us a lot more grip to make our way up this hill. Now, again, I cannot state this enough, and I said this a lot in part 1 of my Expeditions gameplay, but the grip on rocks has been very heavily modified from what it was like in SnowRunner. Rocks actually feel like they have grip now, especially after you drop tire pressure, which is a huge deal because it makes the driving feel so much more engaged and so much more in tune with the environment itself rather than having the rocks feel like ice. And I do have to also say, visually, this canyon environment is absolutely gorgeous, and it's a lot of fun to honestly explore around. Now, again, you're going to be doing these explorations in sort of bite-sized mission pieces. So as you do them, the game will sort of give you a little bit of direction here and a little bit of direction there, and it will give you an idea of where you're going next. But obviously the routes you take and the equipment you use to get there is in large part up to you. So even though, yes, there are kind of determined waypoints and destinations and objectives, you are still controlling quite a bit of how you actually get these objectives completed. Another thing that I think will be really important in terms of having a long-term enjoyable experience with Expeditions is treating it more like a addition to the games in the Runner series that we already have, as opposed to treating it like the next installment in the series. And here we actually get to see a remote area bridge being built over a little kind of miniature chasm, miniature canyon thing. I honestly love it. I think it's really, really cool to see stuff like this being used in such a creative way. And not only to see stuff like this being used in such a creative way, but seeing it be used in a way that would just kind of overall promote exploration. Now, obviously, the whole kind of premise of this game is exploration in the first place. And when you realize that that's kind of where all of this needs to be thought of from, then a lot of the decisions that they made start to make a lot more sense. And I know that there's always a lot of comments from people that say, well, why couldn't this just have been a DLC? And here's the thing about that. I know some people may disagree with me on this, but I don't believe that this could have been a SnowRunner DLC. I just don't think it could have been. I don't think that they could have packaged all of these different mechanics into SnowRunner as a DLC and had them function the way that they wanted them to. And that's why it just kind of, I don't know, it continues to sort of confuse me whenever I see the comments saying like, well, this should have just been a SnowRunner DLC. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is. And it does kind of frustrate me because it's something that I see over and over and over again in comments pretty much. And so once you like see that opinion enough times, especially after you've played the game, it's kind of like, no, that's not what they were going for here. This is not just a SnowRunner add-on, but on a different game. It's a whole hell of a lot more than that. Now, obviously, in order to see what this game is like in its full release form, we're going to have to wait for release. So these are not any kind of final opinions of any sort, and the game is very clearly a work in progress. So obviously, we are keeping that in mind as we move forward, but things like vehicle recoveries are still a thing. Things like, you know, deliveries. You do still deliver certain things, just on a different basis and in a different style than you might have done in SnowRunner. And remember, think of this more as a companion to SnowRunner rather than a follow-up to SnowRunner, like a companion to SnowRunner that has a slightly different tone, a slightly different style, a slightly different way of just doing things. And almost like when you're done with the SnowRunner experience and you want something to do in that similar universe, but you don't necessarily want to play SnowRunner directly, you could come and play this. And maybe that's out of the question for some. Maybe that's not interesting for some. Maybe some of you only play SnowRunner for the lumber hauling and that's it. And that's entirely valid if that's what you play the game for. However, there really are a lot of people that play the game and play this series for more than just that element. So I think restricting yourself to that only being the one reason you play the game is kind of limiting. But then again, that's not me telling anybody how to play a game. I would never tell someone how to play a video game. I feel like that's kind of just, I don't know, if you're trying to tell someone how they should and shouldn't play a video game, it's a... Why? What even is your objective? If you're having fun playing a game, play it however you see fit. But as we get a little closer to the end of this footage, which rounds out part 2 of our Expeditions, a MudRunner Game preview, I do want to hear from y'all in the comments down below. What have you thought of the footage we've gone through in this video, or rather in these couple of videos? What do you think of the points we've discussed? Has this preview made you more excited about the game? Has it made you more interested? Has it made you want more information? Or maybe it's made you less interested. Maybe you looked at this footage and you said, no, not for me. Nope, not interested. Not interesting. Nope. But then again, you never know. And if it did make you less interested in the game, I would love to know why as well in the comments down below, because that would honestly make a little bit less sense to me. So let me know what your favorite thing that we saw and discussed in this video was. And if you're excited to see more about Expeditions, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay as up to date as possible on anything and everything related to Expeditions. that's going to do it for this one, y'all. And I will see y'all next time.